Welcome to Your Family's Health. This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Gerard, and I'm here with Samantha Scalese and Stephen Hines. We're from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College. Your Family's Health is a program that focuses on healthcare issues and resources available here in Nassau County. On the show, we will be speaking to experts from around the country to keep you up to date on healthcare issues and trends. Today, we'll be speaking to Karen Duffy about her book, which is a New York best-selling author, Karen Duffy. Her book is entitled Backbone, Living with Chronic Pain Without Turning Into One. So if you want to know more about how to stay healthy in Nassau County, stay tuned for the next half hour to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so very much.
So tell me a little bit about yourself.
I began my career as a recreational therapist working at the Village Nursing Home in the West Village in New York City. And I've been working at a nursing home as a volunteer since I was 12.
Wow.
And I believe I loved working, feeling of service, and I just loved I just loved working in healthcare, and I just felt that I was doing my best work. And I think the confidence that I got from being a recreational therapist, running the Frank Sinatra Appreciation Society, calling bingo games, gave me other skills in communication and fearlessness. I think it is impossible for me to get embarrassed because I would do anything to get a reaction from my clients who mostly had Alzheimer's or some sort of dementia. And it was interesting that all these skills that I learned working in a nursing home transferred to working as a VJ on MTV. So I literally, overnight, one day, was, calling bingo and writing healthcare protocols for my clients at the nursing home. And the next day, I was in a miniskirt announcing videos. So I went from MTV, and while I was on MTV, I developed some alarming symptoms, respiratory systems, multiple bouts of pneumonia, and just a chronic pain in my head and neck. And I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, which has been ongoing. And I have written my third book, which is just out, called Backbone, which is about living in chronic pain and the belief that chronic pain and happiness and humor can coexist.
Okay, Karen, so before this interview, I had no idea what sarcoidosis was. Can you tell our listeners what this disease is?
Yes, thank you, Sam. It's interesting because sarcoidosis is under the umbrella of the rare disease disorders. It is often thought of as an orphan disease, although it is intensely common in our area, in Long Island, New Jersey, Connecticut. We have a very high population of people who live with sarcoidosis of the respiratory system. So what happens when you have sarcoidosis, it presents in something called a granuloma. And that is where the cells, and sarcoidosis can attack any place on your body where you have soft tissue. So essentially, teeth and hair are the only places you cannot get sarcoidosis. But it is pretty much in about 90% of the cases in the lungs. And these granulomas, these cell masses, become almost like sugar or crystals. And these crystallized granulomas impede the function of whatever organ it's attacking. So it is multisystemic, and I have it in my lungs, my brain, and in multiple areas. It's often in the skin, and it is treatable. It's just not yet curable. That's why I'm writing these books and then donating every penny to research.
Hi, Karen. What were your high points and low points in dealing with this chronic illness?
That's a great question. I think absolutely the low point was the unrelenting chronic pain. because I would say my high point and my low point were probably on the same day. I was at the Emmys, probably like 1996, and my date was George Clooney, who's an old friend, and
Wow.
I was nominated for a show that I was a correspondent on with Michael Moore called TV Nation, and George was nominated for this new show that he was on called ER, and he just, I went as his wingman at a lot of different award shows because he knew I wasn't going to jump in his lap and, whenever there was a camera. So what's amazing is on that day, I just remember there are like so many photos documenting that day that we were walking into the Emmys. And I remember saying to George, I was like, I have the worst headache. Usually I never really got headaches. I think I was a carrier. I gave headaches. And and I realized, I was like, did I just have too much loudmouth soup? And he's like, he had one glass of champagne. And but it was one of those pain moments where it is electrifying and stopped me in my tracks, and it wouldn't stop. And I wound up going through all these Bufferin and Advil, and I flew home and went right to my doctor, and he said, I don't know what this is, but this does not look good. And he sent me right in for some MRIs and CAT scans, and immediately the scans lit up like a Christmas tree, that there were absolutely these granulomas all over my body. And so I think that there is an amazing thing that there's a photo of the last day that I lived as a healthy person. And then I have never been pain-free since that day. What happened was the granuloma got so big that it crushed the nerves in my spinal column and in my brain. So that's what caused the chronic pain.
Mm-hmm. By the way, we love George Clooney.
Oh.
So we know we love you too.
Thank you. He has a gift for friendship.
Wow.
He's truly
Okay.
one of the most loyal, most amazing friends in the world.
But tell me, Karen, how did you cope with this type of pain? It sounds like it was paralyzing. How did you deal with it?
I still continue to deal with it now, nearly 19 years later, 20 years later. And the way I deal with it is I have a doctor at New York Cornell, a neurologist, who is a fearless pharmacologist. And I'm on a protocol of steroids, methotrexate, and MS-Contin and Neurontin. And I also wear a lidocaine patch. And the thing is, I've now accepted that this is going to be my life. And what I realize is, if I hated this pain, and if I hated sarcoidosis, I would be hating a big part of my life. And so I just decided that, I'm really just trying to fly when the window's open. When I can walk, I will walk. And if I can be upright, I will. I mean, I've just come off a pain flare where I was down for 4 days. And so I expect, Aristotle said, it is likely that unlikely things shall happen. And in a way, I think perhaps a reductive way to think about it is, the problem is we don't expect problems. And I think living with a chronic illness, I expect problems every day. And if it's not a catastrophe, I'm grateful. And if it is a catastrophe, I'm like, well, I've been here before, and I'll be able to be strong enough and have resilience to get back.
Hi, Karen. So, it sounds like you've gone through a transformation, but could you describe how pain changed you as a person?
It's interesting. Pain has changed me because it is debilitating. It's embarrassing. There's what I have. I am I have an invisible illness. The granulomas are knotted up in my spine and into my brain. That's invisible. So to the common observer, I don't have a big weeping sore or a goiter. Like, you really, unless you noticed I'm using a cane or I have my hands taped together, you wouldn't really know that I have an illness. And so it's invisible, but also I think there's a duality because I feel invisible on the days when I am absolutely roped to my couch fort like Gulliver because of a pain flare. And what I've had to do is manage my life that to feel useful. I think it's so important to have a purpose, and I can no longer work as a recreational therapist. I am a member of the Screen Actors Guild, and I can no longer pass a physical in order to, have a more than a day or two job on a film. And so I've had to mourn for my old life and figure out my new life. And I just realized that I'm really grateful and immensely lucky that I've been able to have the faith and the resilience to keep getting back up after getting knocked down.
Wonderful. It sounds like a great resilience that you have. You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College at 90.3 WHPC. This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Gerard, and I'm here with Samantha Scalese and Stephen Hines, and we're talking to our best-selling author, Karen Duffy, about her book, Backbone, Living with Chronic Pain Without Turning Into One.
So there was one part of your book that really stood out to me. You're a brilliant author in the way that you really keep it real with your readers.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about how you lived your life from milk carton to milk carton for a while?
Okay. Yes, thank you, Sam. That was interesting. So in the early part of my illness, which was really the acute phase where the lights are flashing and you're in and out of the hospital and you really are trying to figure out what is going haywire in your body. And this was a time of diagnostic uncertainty. And what I would do was I drank a lot of tea, and I live right across the street from a deli. So I would go over to the deli, and I would go to where the milk was, and I would look for the milk where the date was stamped into the furthest into the future. And there's a brand like Lactaid, which lasts a really long time. And I would say, okay. I would look at the date, say the date would be March 24th. I'd say, okay, I want to outlive this milk carton. So I would just make a mental note, say, okay, the milk's going to go bad on March 24th. I want to live till March 24th. And for about 2 years, I would just buy milk and say, okay, there's no way I can expire before the milk. And so I did that, for several years. And then now, much later in the chronic phase, I live my life through the U.S. Amateur Hockey League, the age groups. So I have a son, and he started off as a mite, and that's like 8 and 9, and then every 2 years it goes up. And so my son is just finishing up as a bantam, and I lived all the way through the U.S. Hockey League too.
You also mentioned making an effort to look your best on the days when you feel the worst is well worth it. What are your hairstyle and attire choices, and why is it so important to you to make sure that you have a style, especially while living with a chronic illness?
Well, thank you, Sam. One of my favorite books was by an author, Anatole Broyard, who wrote Intoxicated by My Illness. And his thesis was that every person who lives with a catastrophic illness